And we're live. It's a Sunday. Welcome everyone to the show. It's a bit brisk outside. I've got some snow on the ground I'm looking at right now. And yeah, a couple days ago I was in London, so we'll talk about that in just a bit. Got to say hi to everybody who's dropped in, though. A lot of people check in early. Adam and Padre and Drewski, who cracks a joke and says, "Hey, look, kids, there's Big Ben and there's Parliament, Buckingham Palace. That's where the Queen lives and works. Works. What does she do, Dad? Oh, she queens and vacuums." Why not? Mark Miller checking in. Appreciate that. Some comments about Queensryche. Like I said, I'm only know the one song, so sorry. Padre mentions The Clash and London Calling, and I mentioned I bought that album back in the day. Scott Summers, Bring That Temp Back. Foxy Thrani, when Steve has stories, I know it's going to be fun. Yeah, and I got a lot of stories. I got all kinds of. I got news stories. Blazer 02 LS, Padre, Operation Mind Crime is awesome. So hey, I even mentioned I'd bought London Calling back in the day. And I remember, of course, that was the album that had Train in Vain as an unlisted track on it, which confused a lot of people. But they used to do those kinds of things back then to get your attention. The Prodigal Stranger, thanks for the reply. I thought you might still be across the pond, been wanting to visit the UK for some time now. These live streams really help pass the time at work. Well, I appreciate that. And you had asked on another social media platform whether I was going to be able to do a live stream today. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? I'm sitting here. I was in London last week. I spent a week there, which I'll get to in a second. What of? Howdy, everyone. Blazer O2LS ran a DJ service back then. Yeah, I'm not sure you don't whip out London Calling at a rave though, do you? Here's the latest dance number from the Clash. I don't know. I'll give it an 87. It's good, but I don't know if I can dance to it. Mark Miller, sup? Of course, you gotta say that. Karen Pelham Parker, hi from Shalimar, Florida. What a beautiful sounding place, Shalimar, Florida. Pete Nikolich, hi Steve. New Creature in Christ, hi Steve. Jake Line, good noon, Steve. And of course, that's pretty accurate, although it's actually 1 o'clock now, according to the big clock on the wall. AE1TP A92GW Tom, cheers from Bulgaria. I have no idea what the prefix means, but of course, anything to keep it interesting is good for me. Greetings from New Jersey, Joe Bonchi, the juggler's assistant, says story time. Give me a couple more minutes. I want to make sure everyone gets here. We got 300 in the room right now. We're getting there. Reinhard Mann, E. Warden, hello. Nancy McCormick, JW, hi from Oregon. Mr. Landfill, how is everyone? And greetings from Vermont via Eric Hammond. Manuel Guerra, are you jet lagged? No, I'm not. And here's the thing. Flew to London on Saturday, a week ago from yesterday. Left Detroit at 4 or 5 in the afternoon and landed in London like the next day, literally. 9-hour, 10-hour flight plus you 5-hour difference. By the time you do the math, some of you lost a full day of your life. So landed in London bright and early Sunday morning, and I only got like an hour of sleep on the plane because it was turbulent. It was a turbulent flight. And I don't mean emotionally, I mean physically. And so got like an hour of sleep on the flight. I thought I'd get more, but I didn't. And then went and got to my hotel. I said, hey, how soon can I check in? I'm a bit early. And they said, give us a few minutes. We'll get you a room. So ran around, did a little bit of exploring, came back. They're cool. And so then that was the real problem, was getting used to time difference, jet lag situation over there. And by the end of the week, just I'm getting in tune with it. I come back. And so the way it worked out, interestingly, was I left London around noonish, flew back to America, but now I pick up 5 hours. I pick up the 5 I lost the week before. So by the time I land in Detroit, it's still light out. It's the craziest thing, but there's snow on the ground. Get home, was a little bit messed up last night. I went to bed around 9 and my body thought it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And I got up this morning and I'm fine, just fine. I mean, literally nothing. It took me a couple days in England, but I'm fine now. So there you go. But LB34 MWR says, I caught the live feed. Yes, indeed you did. DePaul 31, good afternoon, Steve. Cheerio. Cheerio. Oh, Mike Lamb. Has anyone ever told you sound like Matt Freuer, the Max Headroom actor? No, I haven't. I can tell you though, if I got my hair a little bit lighter, I could probably look kind of like him. Although my chiseled features aren't as chiseled as they used to be. I will tell you that walking through London, I walked past a door, like a roll up door that a truck would go through, and it said max headroom with a distance on it. I was gonna take a picture of it, but it was in a darkened alley. It wouldn't have come out that good, and it would have been something that would be just like a joke between like people like us discussing max headroom. Denny Ray's Bees. Hey, Steve. And Mike from Westland, Michigan. Mike Johnson's checking. Appreciate that. So yeah, it got way ahead of me again. Unbelievable. That's what happens when I talk too much. Hey, Daniel Kessler checking in from California. Hey, Daniel, I hope you caught the fact you asked me. I believe it was you about prejudice without prejudice. I did a video specifically in response to that went up to I think it went up on Friday night maybe. Edward Mitchell said, did you pay your personal visit to Interpol to get your $1.8 million? Not yet. Irving Johnson, guessing you drove the Viper to London. Yeah. It's like hiking to London. Interestingly, did a bit of driving around, and I'll tell you some more stories about that in a second. In London, and sadly in England in particular, there's a lot of streets that are narrow, a lot of alleys that are even narrower. And I saw people driving cars up and down places that I'd be scared to push a shopping cart. I mean, so John Buchanan, I'll be in London in 6 months. Tim Nossum, was odd hearing make way for the King's Guards instead of the Queen's Guards. Oh, I didn't even think of that. I should have gone down and gotten in their way to see what they'd yell at me. Because I'm sure they now yell, make way for the King's Guards, instead of make way for the Queen's Guards. The only guards I saw on this trip, I did swing by Buckingham Palace. They wouldn't let me in the gates once again. It was kind of dark out though, but there's always the little booths that have the guards in them. If you come out at the right time, you can see them marching back and forth, that kind of thing. These guys are just standing there looking chilly because it was in fact chilly. Oh boy. Idris Taylor, hi all. Robert Wheatley from Ocala, Florida. Mike Zapanchik, hi, my first live I've actually had a chance to watch live. There you go. And I hope I didn't mispronounce it. Is it Zupanchik or Zupancic? It could be either. It's probably both. Doug Jones, hello from Ontario, Canada. I hope we can remain good neighbors. Ontario, Canada, and Michigan, USA have always been great neighbors, and we will continue to be so, regardless of anything else that happens. So, Garrett Clark from Trumbull, Connecticut. 710, how are you at home live? When the video today, you said you was traveling. I was when I shot it. I shot that video on Wednesday. That's the beauty of video. I shot it on Wednesday. I was walking around and I had cameras with me. I had my GoPro cameras with me. And I thought, you know something? I could shoot a video and put Big Ben in the background. Get it? Big Ben. And I did that. And I understand it's the tower. It's not, the tower is what you see, but the bell is actually the name, Big Ben. But anyways. So I had, when I got that junk email saying I could get $1.8 million from Interpol, I thought, that'd make a fun video just to mock that. I've done that before. And I thought, oh, I can do that and stand outside and shoot it. And then, of course, so it starts with me not in front of, and then it pans around. There's that interesting building over there. So, oh, Red Shirt One, welcome back home. Jay Klein, hello from cold and currently sunny Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati is practically another state. It's on the far side of Ohio from us. Of course, I'm not making this up. I was going to wear a shirt today that had something in the front. I was going to wear a Buckeyes shirt. I've got a red Buckeyes shirt. It's right over there. It was the neck, and I was going to put that on as a way to just kind of like troll, because Michigan beat Ohio State yesterday. And but there was some ugliness after the game, and I thought, something, nah, and I'm not going to break tradition and wear a shirt on this live stream. But yeah, in case you didn't know, 13-10, Michigan beat Ohio State. Ryan Day is very upset. The guy's lost 4 in a row. And even I will admit to you that Michigan's not that good this year. They're just not. Okay, it's a rebuilding year. Every program's got rebuilding years. Most of them do. And the guy I feel sorry for, I really feel sorry for the guy, is the Ohio State field goal kicker who missed 2 field goals. And you can do the math. If he'd hit one of those two, it would have been a tie game. If he had hit them both, Ohio State would have won. Now, that guy's got to go to school on Monday. And I'm sure everyone knows who he is. And, you hit those field goals and you're a hero. You miss them and you're a goat. So Richard Ockman says, well, that was a quick trip. No, it was a week. It was a week. Jay Klein, hello from cold and currently sunny Cincinnati. I already got that. But I meant to read Joe and the hi. Hello from Iron Mountain in the Upper Peninsula. You cross the Mackinac Bridge, you turn left, and you keep driving. And before you hit Wisconsin, over that way, you'll find Iron Mountain, Iron River, and Ironwood. And as you might imagine, that's iron country as opposed to the copper country, which is up in the Keweenaw. Brianna CC is in the house. Old friend, been with the show many, many years. Sybil with an E. Hit that like button, everyone. Two Tires, hello from Pennsylvania. And Andy, New York 29, checking in from Florida, of all places. So, in case you're curious, the Canadian Robot Lady did send me a note and apologize. She's got some very, very important things she's doing. Will not be here for today or possibly a couple other lives, but she'll check back in and she'll give us all the updates and everything she's been up to. So, The Prodigal Stranger, thanks to the book report video, I bought The Lighthouse of Stalingrad for my brother. And Our Band Could Be Your Life for my sister. In-law as Christmas gifts. Daniel Kester, are you staying hydrated? I will be. I've got hydration at my side. So, Susie Q, 58. Hello from Houston. Sorry about your jet lag. No, it's not that bad. I'm getting better. Nate Davis, greetings from Kalamazoo. And JP Boylo is checking in from fabulous Las Vegas. Of course he is. Posted some beautiful photographs of him up hiking in a canyon someplace out that way. And I'm like, beautiful pictures. Like, yeah, it doesn't show you how hard of a slog it was due to the altitude, the ground you're walking on, and the angle and how far it is. It was actually a grind. But, you do that just for the photographs of nothing else. Dan Hale checking in from Gastonia, North Carolina. Emmanuel, hey, dog. Steve is live. Jim Freeman, hey, the conscientious lawyer. It could be also a conscientious objector, right? So, Alien EV asks a question you were all wondering. I know. Do you have Eddie Bauer luggage? Yes, I do. I actually was going to bring it out because I was unpacking it this morning. And I'm like, wait a second. I should show people this because they wouldn't believe me otherwise. The only thing I've never owned Eddie Bauer is an Eddie Bauer Explorer, and it's just the way things have worked out. Fatty McButterpants, are you going to be the final ELO show at Hyde Park in July? As far as I know, no. I wish I could be. I've been to Hyde Park many times. I've seen ELO now once, and I loved that. I loved that performance. But I don't know about Hyde Park in July. Obviously, I have to go to London, have to get tickets, have to do all kinds of stuff, and it just happened to work out. I've been to England now 4 times. This is my 4th time there. And I love the place. I love spending time there. But to get away for a week and fly and, and it just so happens it's easier for me to take like the weekend trip or jump in a car and drive the Upper Peninsula and drive back. It's one of those things. Robert Torres says, sure cure for the jet lag is to ride the Concorde. Don't think that's possible these days, but I understand what you're saying. Operation Pre-Crime, hey, Steve, et al. From solo female van life currently in South Carolina. You mean actually living out of a van down by the river? Wow. Doug Jones, you may crash later. No, I think I'm okay. Although famous last words, right? Right. Oh, boy. Garna Cash, hello from Finland. Cool. Thank you for checking in. I've not been to Finland. I've had several people say, Steve, you've been to London 4 times, but not to Finland. It's not that far over, Well, it is in many respects. I don't speak Finnish. And I understand that many people in Finland do speak English, but I don't speak Finnish. And to me, the street signs, everything be off, right? So there you go. Big Cop, hello from St. Louis. Operation Pre-Crime, I went over the Mackinac Bridge not long ago. Best $5 toll I spent in a while. Walked around Mackinac City. Wow, beautiful spot. Yeah, Mackinac City is nice. It's kind of touristy. There's like T-shirt shops, like every other shop, it seems. St. Ignace is really cool. That's the north end of the bridge. But there's a lot of nice stuff up there. And, of course, the $5 toll to cross a bridge that is, in essence, 5 miles long is, per mile, not that expensive. Isaac Bob York, hello from Sweden. Thank you for checking in. Brianna CC points out that Michigan and Ohio are key battleground states. Yes, they are, and both in football and other things. Blah, blah, blah. Do you have any trouble speaking before in languages in the United Kingdom? Interestingly, I did have trouble understanding some people because I'd go into like a takeout, to get like something to eat and walk around with. And people who are in a hurry speaking English with a heavy accent, British accent, will say things, but it's often because you're not expecting the words to come out the way they're saying them. Like, in other words, we'd say, for here or to go. And I forgot, like, they go takeaway or, and a couple times I'm like, oh, hang on. I think I got this. Hello. By the way, I was in a, I was in a little coffee shop not far from where I was staying, and a guy overheard me talking, and he goes, "Excuse me, sir," and he's speaking the King's English. He goes, "Are you from America?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Don't tell me. Can I guess your accent?" And I said, "Okay, I understand that to you, I've got an accent the same way you've got an accent to me." But I go, "But are you that good that you can spot, like, obviously a heavy Southern accent, I'm guessing?" He'd be able to spot pretty easily. He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "I'm guessing either the Midwest or Canada." And I already told him I'm from America, but the interesting thing by saying Midwest or Canada is indicating the part of the Midwest that's up that direction. I'm guessing Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Michigan. I said, "Well, I'm from Michigan." We had a long discussion, and I said, what do you do for a living? I'm curious." And he goes, "Oh, I'm a sign painter." And he showed me a sign he had painted, and it listed all of these barristers on it and solicitors. And I go, "Oh, legal signs?" And he goes, "Yeah, primarily." He goes, "I do all the work for the courts and all of the law offices that are across the street from the courts." And he said, "Have you gone down this little alleyway to see that what's back there?" I said, "No, I haven't." He goes, "Well, go back there. There's a lot of cool stuff. Go down there, and it's the Temple Church. And then there's all these offices over here. But the Temple Church, of course, is the church run by," I just happen to have the flyer right here, that it's been there since 1163. And it's the Temple Church, the Collegiate Chapel of Inner and Middle Temple, two of London's four ancient legal colleges, the Inns of Court. The church had been built by the Knights Templar, who owned the whole of the present temple. The Templars were suppressed in 1314. And of course, you can get all that from a documentary called The Da Vinci Code. So, got to tour this really cool church that I think was about 100 yards from my hotel. And I didn't know it was there because I was just hadn't looked that up. Bill Gorman says you should try Greece. Awesome place. Grilled sea bass dinner, $14. Lunch, 2.5. Really? Yeah, it's interesting how far money goes in different places, and some things are very, very inexpensive and so on. Of course, if you're staying in London and traveling around London, the food in London can get expensive, But yeah, like I said, I was just there for a week, so. Michael Waltrates says, "Greetings from Belgium. Any attempt to pronounce my last name is appreciated." Mr. Landfill, checking in from Grand Blanc, Michigan. Grand Blanc, Michigan, a suburb of Flint, Michigan. Mike Torello says, "Steve looks like a better looking version of Bobby the Brain Heenan." I've gotten that. I've heard that one before. Not the better looking. I've just heard the Bobby the Brain thing before. Reinerman says 1163 isn't that long ago. Well, if you're talking about time, of course, that would be an improper number, right? It'd be like maybe 1153 or 1159. But hey, Gilbert's in the house. Good to see you too, my friend. John Sober says, "I thought Steve was giving a mugging story." Doug Jones, "Isn't it meters in England?" Not for me, it's not. QA Library, did you do the buses or the underground? I did not do the buses, but to me, I like walking around a bit. Rode the tube many times, though. That's what we call it now, the tube. And for people who don't know, there's this big subway system in London, and a lot of Americans don't understand it because they go, "What? I know that New York has got subways. It's different. It's different. Trust me, it's different." And you can get anywhere you want to go in and around London very, very simply and easily on a clean and efficient underground system. And I got an Oyster card, and it's put some money on it. You just boom, walk. You tap in, you tap out, you go all over the place. So I was running around all over the place. And then the reason I was in England, by the way, is that my good friend Dave Fowler, who is the guitar player, one of the two guitar players in Aussie Pink Floyd. I saw a show. He invited me to a show they did in Detroit back in June. And after the show, he said, "Do you ever get to England?" I said, "Well, I've been there 3 times, but I haven't been there lately." And he said, "Well, if you can get there in November, we're doing a show at Royal Albert Hall." And I said, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "If you could attend that show," he goes, "we've got a box. You could just sit in a private box and watch the show." And I said, "Oh, you know something? I might be able to make that happen." So I did make it happen. And that's the primary reason I chose that week. So then what I did is I got out there a couple days early, hoping that the jet lag would get resolved. And then Dave asked me, he said, "Steve," he goes, "what are you doing the day before the Royal Albert Hall show?" And I said, "Well, recovering from jet lag." "Why?" And he said, "We're playing a show up in Cambridge. Would you like to come see us in Cambridge?" He goes, "So you get the experience where Cambridge is a smaller venue. It's sold out, but it's a tiny, smaller venue." And he says, "Then you can see us at Royal Albert Hall," which is the other end of that spectrum, the very next day. And so I said, "That sounds cool." So I got there and I took the train, and then I took a tube and then a train to Dave's place. And we got in a car and drove to Cambridge. And that was a blast, except it freaks me out to be sitting in the passenger side of a car with no steering wheel in front of me, because in England, the driver's over there. And so I'm sitting where I'd have a steering wheel, but I don't. And we're driving the wrong side of the road. But again, he's driving, but drove to Cambridge, saw the show, had a great time, came back. And then the next day went to Royal Albert Hall and saw them perform again. I'm probably going to do an entire video about the Royal Albert Hall and the Cambridge shows, because they're very interesting and also very you can contrast them, because for Royal Albert Hall, I was in a box in the back of the venue, looking straight at the stage. And for the Corn Exchange, what the building is called in Cambridge, I was in a tiny little box, balcony, little box above the stage off to one side, and I was literally sitting directly above Dave Fowler's guitar rig. So when he was playing the songs, I could watch him as he hit the different pedals. I felt kind of like, I don't know, the Phantom of the Opera up there, like kind of like, and it was pretty cool, and it was a lot of fun. So I had a blast. But we'll talk some more about that. Oh, by the way, though, just for fun, though, here's the backstage pass to Royal Albert Hall, which I saved, and of course, here's the backstage pass to the after show. And if you look closely, you'll see that there's the man shaking hands, but he's shaking hands with Skippy, the kangaroo for Aussie Pink Floyd. Jim Freeman, we need pics from the show. Oh no, I've got pics. I've got pictures. I shot video. I'm gonna have to drop the sound out of the video because I don't want to get any copyright issues with musical rights and so on. But I mean, you don't need to hear the sound off of a camera I'm shooting with. But I did get my picture taken on the stage at Royal Albert Hall, and I'll post that in an upcoming video. So I there's a picture of me standing on stage, and background is the where the people sit. Oh, Brianna, do you have aspirations to run for the Michigan Supreme Court? No, not at all. Sadly, it's politics. They run for election, and it's politics like everything else. I wouldn't want to subject myself to that. The pellet guy, I sent you a link a couple weeks ago to a story of 2 prison guards losing qualified immunity in Maine. Did you receive it? Doesn't ring a bell. And I apologize, but I will admit that while I was in England for a week, a lot of emails I didn't respond to, and I also didn't shoot videos about them because I wasn't anywhere near my studio. So, beer patio. It sounds like you were one of the guys from the Muppets. You mean up on the balcony? Ember Miss 69, Stephen all, but late to the party, it seems. Mark Smith reminds me of Rockwood in New York City. The sound man is up in the attack. Oh, I'm sorry, up in the attic. Up in the attack. That means a term of art. Mark Heil, so cool you saw Dave play there. I love seeing him in Anaheim. Yeah, Mark's a good friend of mine, and Mark and I had exchanged notes, and he asked me about the band. I said, "Seriously, Steve, I mean, you know, are they that good?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." He goes, "Well, they're coming to Anaheim. I'll go see them." So I'm glad that other people agree with me on that as well. Boats, is he buffering to anyone? Oh my gosh, don't the Tyson Paul fight all over again. Don't sue me. Gilbert says 5x5. For those of you who don't know, that's at 25. No, I'm just kidding. It's radio lingo for loud and clear, I believe. Brianna, thank you, Steve Lehto. Johnny Quest, did you stop at the clamp at the castle in Kent? I just saw that episode like 2 weeks ago. The Clampets spent some time in England, jolly old England. So Matthew David is glad to finally catch a stream, usually at work. Needs more cowbell, which is true of everything, by the way. You were just in London, now back in the office. Yeah. The London video was shot Wednesday, and I just posted it this morning. And I'm back now. I'm back. So, but I will post some other stuff I shot there. So, for instance, Dave is the guy behind the videos on YouTube for Aussie Pink Floyd. So if you want to see what Aussie Pink Floyd sounds like, go to YouTube and type in Aussie Pink Floyd, AUSSIE for you Americans, Aussie Pink Floyd, and then type in like "Wish You Were Here." It's one of my favorite renditions that they do of a song. And you watch it and you're going, "Wow, it's amazing! It's shot really well, but it sounds really good." Blah blah blah. And the shooting of it and the editing of the video is done by Dave Fowler because he's a virtuoso at that also. And I saw him setting up some cameras at these different shows, and I saw him setting up a Black Magic camera. For those of you who know this, they're very, very cool cameras, very industrial, but also they can be very expensive. And he's got one that shoots in 12K. And so at the Royal Albert Hall, I saw him setting up this tripod, and he put a Black Magic camera on it, and he recorded the show from that camera. And I was talking to him about all the different cameras he's got, and I said, I wonder what a show would look like if it was shot my show, but on that camera. And he goes, "Oh, we can do that." So a day or two later, I went to his studio, and he had the camera, the big Black Magic camera. Not the I guess he didn't use it to shoot the show I saw, but he had the camera, and he goes, "Let's set." So we set this up, and I did a Lehto's Law, not in front of my stuff, but in front of his stuff, which is there's a correlation. You're gonna see some overlap there because he's got microphones and stuff, but he's got more recording equipment, compressors and stuff. So I shot a video in his studio, which will go up tomorrow, I believe. And then I've got one or two others that I'll put up, including one where I sat next to Dave and he and I discussed it because I said, you know something, I'd sit here and take notes because he kept telling me the specifications on the camera. And I'm like, I'm not gonna remember any of that. So let's just do a quick discussion. And it wound up being longer than the latest Law video, but it was fun. So Brian Fullerton, glad your bags made it. I assume you're referring to a story I told about the airline losing a bag of mine and literally lying to me about it repeatedly. And I didn't even mind the fact they lost the bag. I was more hurt by the fact they were lying to me about it. I was disappointed. Harry Seldon, did you catch Michigan beating Ohio State? That makes the season a success. Yes, it does. But yes, I did. And ironically, I couldn't watch it live because I was on the plane. I was on the airplane, and but I had Wi-Fi, and a friend of mine was watching it, and he's giving me play-by-play via messages. And so, as the plane was coming into land, the guy hit the field goal in the last minute of the game, last 45 seconds, and the plane landed, and I lost the Wi-Fi. But then I had to just reconnect to the main outside Wi-Fi or phone connection. I got it, and I had to send him a quick note and say, "Hey, did the game end?" He goes, "Yes, but now they're fighting." So, boats, Aussie Floyd is so good. Yeah, check it out. See, now stuff's jumping around. Steve, can our Ohio State Attorney General go after Ohio State coaches for malpractice? I don't know. I didn't see any grievous breaches other than the fact they lost the game. I'd be more concerned about suing that kicker for missing 2 field goals. They weren't even big. I mean, they weren't that long. But the bigger question is the Lions Chicago game. I didn't see it, but I heard all about it, and it sounds like the Chicago coach, he may have screwed up a little bit. No, the Lions. I am telling you right now, I'm actually officially changing my stance on them. I'm not going to claim I always believed in them because I didn't. But it looks to me like they might be the real thing. The real thing meaning that they are potentially in contention for Super Bowl. In other words, not just that they might get a game into the playoffs, they're going to actually play well into the playoffs. And I've been rooting for them all along, but I'm just like I root for them, but I gotta take it all with a grain of salt because I've been disappointed by them so many times. So Laura Thompson says the Blackmagic cameras are amazing. Blackmagic now makes a camera app for the iPhone as well. Did not know that. Paul Harris says Netflix lawsuit. I don't think they have a case because some people got good reception or non-buffering. I think it was more the cable providers than Netflix. I wonder about that because I had fantastic reception, despite the fact that I've got horrible internet. So let's not go there. Oh boy. Mark Smith says Lawn TV shoots them in 4K and streams at 4K. Yeah, the problem with shooting stuff much higher than that, because like I said, he can shoot stuff in 12, is the files are gigantic. And don't get me wrong, I've got a modern computer. It's not like space age. It's not like steam powered or coal powered, but it doesn't like files that get that big. So, Prodigal Stranger says that my turbo encabulator may have glitched and caused the Interpol email. Interesting. Elliot Polach says, "What is this Blackmagic camera?" It's a company called Blackmagic. I don't know where the names come from or why they use it, but it's. I did a video. Trying to think of I was going to say I sat for a documentary, but it hasn't come out yet. So I could point you to more stuff shot with Blackmagic, but I can't. That I'm familiar with. Lewis Browning says bet on the Lions to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. Anybody who did that deserves the huge payout they're going to get. Boats, have you ever been to Maine? No, I haven't. I have not been to Maine. The Midnight Bandwidth says I need a lot of grains of salt. Thanks for the learning opportunities. Well, you're welcome. And watch out for that sodium. It can overwhelm you. Yeah, Harry Seldon reminds the Bears fired the coach after that game. They're going to hire a psychic to contact Ditka for the rest of the season. Channeling it to the side. Maybe they, instead of holding up signs, they can hold up a Ouija board. Yes, and Aaron York points out that Blackmagic makes DaVinci Resolve the video editing software. And my understanding is, and I got this from Dave, and I could be wrong, but I could also be misinterpreting what he told me, is that Blackmagic basically bought that editing software and added it to like their suite of products, but primarily just to help promote their cameras so people can use their cameras and get good results. So Bob York says I'm watching this and the Detroit Red Wings on TV at the same time. You haven't followed the Wings much lately, but man, they were good for a while. I loved it when they had all those Russians, Sergei Fedorov and company, Igor Larionov. So yeah, that was the good old days. And Laser Troll says, no, he thinks it was Netflix. My ISP throughput was barely used. Okay. Matthew Showstrom, nothing quite like a Steve livestream unpack and get situated in my dorm room after coming back from Thanksgiving break. Got to get back to the real world. Although now it's a short sprint to Christmas, right? Laura Thompson says Blackmagic also makes switchers and other devices for the movie and audio industry, something called an ATEM, which is the little desktop video switcher. Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that too. Yeah, Brian Fullerton says, does Interpol use civil asset forfeiture for seizure of funds if they give it out? Like say $1.8 million. And somebody asked me that on the YouTube channel, and they said, it's possible that they'll one hand will give you the money, the other hand will take it away and say, yeah, civil asset forfeiture. If Fatty McButterpants' Blackmagic could have been inspired by Santana, Blackmagic Woman. QA Library, Steve, you want me to send you a link to 16th century graffiti in the Tower of London? Prisoners decoded for the first time. Sure, I've been to the tower, but I didn't decode the graffiti. Oh, boy. Blah, blah, blah. I was wondering, are you ever going to hang up your pictures? You mean the ones right there, like the one of Robbie Robertson and the one of Milo and Wolfie? I probably should. I think I will simply leave them there. They're so far down the to-do list. Yerky Eltonen says something in Finnish which I cannot pronounce, nor can I even translate it. But I'm pretty sure that the first name is Yerky. I can. It's all phonetic. I can pronounce it, but I can't tell what it means. G Keyman 565. Hello, Steve. Where were you in the Interpol video? So there's the building of Parliament, and there's a tower that Big Ben is in. And then if you were to go straight past it and hang a left, Westminster Abbey is over here. You couldn't see it in the video because the Thames River is right there. You saw the river if you watched all the way to the end. I actually did a quick pan of that. And there's a wall there, and there's a long walkway that goes along this wall by the river. And then there's the bridge. There's Westminster Bridge is the name of the bridge. And that bridge is one of the most famous bridges in London. The Tower Bridge is more picturesque, but the bridge right there, everyone who's ever been to London, if they've gone to see Big Ben or Westminster or Parliament Building, would know would know that bridge. And so I'd gone over there just poking around, and I thought, I just need to find a quiet place where I can have that be the background. And so you heard how loud it was, and it wasn't the quietest place on earth, but it was the quietest place that I could get that video shot. So Duncan Campbell, morning, Steve. Sorry, I'm late. No, that's fine, my friend. Check in anytime. I got to tell you, I watched a documentary on the plane called Ford versus Holden. Not Ford versus Ferrari. Ford versus Holden. And of course, we're talking about the battle for supremacy in Australia. I knew the companies were there, but I didn't know that they had pretty much the same thing that they had going on in America, where in America it was Ford and Chrysler who were fighting it out on the tracks of NASCAR. And in Australia, it was Ford and Holden fighting it out on Bathurst. And it was an amazing documentary. It was talking all about the history of these two car companies in Australia and how they got that, how they got along during that time. So P&J Grizzly unscripted talks are seemingly rare these days. Your skill, what would you attribute it to? Your experience as a professor? No, believe it or not, it was my experience in radio. I did take speech classes in college because I wanted to go into radio. So I took public speaking. I took just basic speech 101, whatever that might be. And I took a couple other classes on speechifying. And then I worked in radio for a while. And the thing about radio is that you learn to speak into a microphone with no idea of who's listening to you. So imagine that this chat box here is not visible. If I didn't know anybody's listening, can you talk to a microphone in an empty building and make it sound conversational? And so that's part of it. But you're right, because it's not enough just to talk. You have to have something to say. And so I worked in radio for a long time, and again, radio quite often is time constraints, meaning you've got to say something in 12 seconds or 17 seconds. Then I worked in talk radio for a while, which also helped, and teaching did help as well. But teaching also just simply used those skills and helped me just refine them by using them. So Isaac Bob York says jurista, I guess, is a lawyer. And Poika means boy, lawyer boy. Is that like a new superhero? James Nordbeck, did you visit the British War Museum? No, I did not. And I feel bad about this on some level. I did. Yes and no, feeling bad. I meant to go visit the Royal Tank Museum, the RAF Museum, the British Museum. These are all things I had intended to think about. But I never had the time because the first day I had a whole day, I told you, I drove up to Cambridge with Dave Fowler. The second day, I needed to stick around because I'm going to go see them at Royal Albert Hall. And then I spent a day hanging out with Dave Fowler And we went to a studio, and I'll show you the video of that later on, not today, but later on. And so it was jam packed with stuff. And the only touristy thing I did is I went to Westminster Abbey. And I went there because every time I've been there previously, which is 3 times, there was a crowd to get in. And anytime there's a crowd to get into a building, you realize there's a crowd inside the building too. And so walking by this time, there's like 10 people in a line at the door. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could probably get in there and see some things. And I did. And I actually got my picture taken, for instance, standing next to Isaac Newton's tomb, again, as made famous in the documentary, The Da Vinci Code. And I will be honest, I didn't realize how much was there. I mean, I knew that there was a lot of stuff in there, but you don't, no. It's like several thousand people who are there interred, as they say, and many famous names, especially in British history, that you'll recognize. Go, oh wow, that is something. Goes way back. So I did not see the Imperial War Museum this trip. I'd like to see it, and one of these days I will. QA Library says the tower with the clock and Big Ben was named Elizabeth Tower, and the wall with the hearts is the UK COVID Memorial Wall. Yeah, I knew that that's what that was for. I didn't know the name of it, but if you notice, the white wall had hearts on it, and a lot of the hearts had names in them, and at one end was an explanation about it. A lot of people simply refer to that tower as Big Ben, but technically speaking, Big Ben is the bell inside the clock tower. So just it's one of those. It's one of those things. If you don't say it once, oh, you got that wrong. It's Big Ben's the bell, not the clock. Sorry, you got that wrong. So Mark Smith says, yeah, Holden equals GM. And that's the funny thing, is that in America for a couple of years, GM did not support NASCAR, stock car racing at all. Zero. They had nothing to do with it. And they came around eventually, but for a little while there, no, they were not interested in doing that at all. So it's very interesting. Chuck Whitehead, what do you think of IndyCar going to playoff system like NASCAR? Not a big fan. In my mind, racing should be who crosses the finish line first, and then the season should go to whoever did best over the season. And the idea that no, somebody who came in 8th place in the season could still win. So, Daniel Kester says, from time to time I watch your older videos that are random, and occasionally there's one with one of your dogs behind you. Makes that comment at the end of your videos more meaningful. Thank you, I appreciate it. Says remember Milo and Wolfie. And Wolfie passed away in 2015, and Milo passed away a few years before that. And I don't have much video of them. I didn't have all the cameras I've got now, so. Bill Gorman, do you know my friend Judge Sheeran in Bay City? No, I do not. I've been in Bay City courts a few times, but not recently. It's been a little while. Harry Seldon, did you ever want to be an MTV VJ when they still played music? Oh, that would have been fun. Talk about the greatest job on earth. In case you didn't know, I believe most of the VJing duties were done similar to how they do voice tracking now, where you go sit in a studio and they give you a list of breaks and they say, okay, tomorrow's show, you're going to be on from 10 till 2. So that 4-hour time slot is going to have this many breaks in it. And they would shoot them in sequence. And they go, okay, now Tuesday, boom, boom, boom. Wednesday, boom, boom. And you'd shoot a whole week's worth in one day. And then the rest of the week, you'd run around doing promotion for MTV, and every place those guys went, and gals, they were rock stars. Talk about a gig, but it was one of those things. I remember I've seen documentaries about the early days of MTV, and they talk about how they found those VJs. Most of them had backgrounds in radio with some acting chops, but it was also a thing where they were just casting, and they're like, kind of like, hey, we like this person, let's go with them. So it would have been a very cool. It's like one of those dream jobs. If you said, hey, name a dream job for somebody who worked in broadcasting and liked modern music in the 1980s. It's like, oh, okay, MTV VJ. So Matthew Shostrom says, nowadays speech classes are normally coded as mid 100s, level English classes. Most colleges recognize that students need to have a grasp of basic English before speech. So, there might not be a class called Speech 101 or Speech 100. I don't remember, because I remember that I took a speech class that was labeled. And don't forget, a lot of classes have different labels, meaning that you can take it as part of this major as this. And I seem to recall that some of them were drama. I think at least one of them was a drama class technically, but it was a speech class. And a lot of actors and actresses took the class because it was not public speaking in that sense. It was theatrical speaking. So we actually did talk about projection and how you sound back there versus how you sound up here and so on. But Ariel Darkstar says Interpol might just be trying to silence you. Now you tell me. Aaron Freeman and teaching, do you ever know if someone's listening? That's a great question. I told the story before that when I was teaching, they had laptops, obviously. And so students are sitting in class, with laptops in front of them, just clacking away while you're talking. So they got their head down, click, 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 and you're lecturing. Occasionally you call on people because that's what you do in law school. And every now and then I just to throw them a curveball, I'd walk around the lectern and walk down the aisle of the class just to watch them work their mouses to close out their, it wouldn't have been Wordle back then, but close out whatever it is they're playing that they shouldn't be playing while they're in class. But quite frankly, I don't have a problem with that. That's why I didn't care. I was more, to me, as a funny thing, because I can play Wordle while talking to somebody, and I can do that. And I'd rather have them do that than fall asleep, because I've been in a class before. I've never had a student fall asleep with me that I knew of, but I've been in a class and watched somebody fall asleep. And, if they're an adult, they're probably working 9 jobs trying to get by, and I salute them for that. But on the other hand, as a teacher, if you had a student fall asleep, it would be kind of bad for your ego, maybe. So, Brandon H, I hear the food is terrible in the UK. It depends on what it is that you're eating. Now, there are some English dishes that I've heard of that don't sound good, but I had great food over there, and there's a lot of curry places, believe it or not. And I had some great food, couple different restaurants. Of course, I was hanging out with a bunch of really, really interesting people. And so we'll talk about that in a second too. Don Backman, did you take a picture of yourself crossing Abbey Road? Yes. Mark Miller, fish and chips. I did have fish and chips once. I did. Nishra Rama, first time I see you live on YouTube. Wondering if you already got your 1.8. No, I'm waiting for it. I'm assuming it's just a matter of I had to send them some information, my name, address, phone number, mother's maiden name, some credit card information for some odd reason, that kind of thing. And I'm just assuming they got to run that through. Brandon H. Is it a myth that radio guys tend to have huge egos? I don't know if all of them do. I know many of them do, but I think it does kind of come from the territory, because how else could you sit in a room by yourself and talk and actually act like it meant something unless you actually had a bit of an ego? So it's possible. Jay Brown, hi Steve, great to see you. I'm late as usual. Fatty McButterpants says you're not first, you're last. Or second place is the first loser. That's what they used to say also. Kevin Thomas, time to get a dachshund. I like dachshunds. My brother's got a dachshund. He's had a whole bunch of dachshunds. But I don't think I'd ever get one. I know they have back issues. A very good friend of mine's a veterinarian, and he said they're just famous for back issues. And so they can get expensive to own. Silmefron, hey, Steve, from the reflection of your glass, it looks like you've got wall-to-wall windows that you're facing. Good view from there. Also, where should we send news links for you? I don't know. I can't really see what you can see there, but it could also be a green screen, right? Send all news ideas and stories. And by the way, it says this someplace on my website or someplace on my channel, but send them to steve@lehtoslaw.com. And I will look at them. I'll try to respond. I can't respond to everybody. And once in a while, I'll get a story from like 300 people, and I'll, thank you. But once in a while, I also get no. Duplensky, that was fast. Did you take the Concorde back? Somebody else asked that earlier. And oh, by the way, somebody asked repeatedly. I meant to get to, it, but I was jumping around. And somebody goes, "Is it still illegal to sell cars on Sunday in Michigan?" Michigan used to have a bunch of really weird laws about auto sales, and some of them were protectionist, meaning that the car dealer industry at one point in time lobbied Lansing to pass a law to make it illegal to sell cars on Saturdays or Sundays. You might go, why would they do that? So they could all shut down and take the weekends off. I'm not making that up. And so it was the weirdest thing. There's also a time when they just did it as a matter of course, and some dealerships, some places would open up on a Saturday, and bad things would happen to their cars at night. It was the weirdest thing. So there's always been a problem. But now dealerships are open on weekends. I'm not sure if they're open on Sundays or not, but don't know. Mark Smith talks about the Buggles, and somebody else mentioned 8181. And yes, of course, that is the whole point, that the Buggles was the first song video killed the radio star on MTV, and that was on August 1st, 81, or 8181. Now, I was waiting for MH08 to check in. And MH08 right now is going, wait, you were talking about me behind my back? And no, we weren't talking about you behind your back. However, I was waiting for you to check in because you always give the time in Kelvin. MH08 says 283K in sunny in Denver. I went to Westminster Abbey where Lord Kelvin is buried or interred, and I got that just for you, my friend. So there you go. There you go. It wasn't even a request. It was literally, I saw it and I said, oh, MH08 needs to see that. Oh. Pete Nikolic is my youngest brother, did the intro music for MTV. He was a guitarist. That's very cool. Very cool. So, Sarah C here, a little late, but happy Sunday, everyone. I appreciate that. Yeah, Fly points out dealerships need to be open when banks are open and vice versa. Otherwise, financing can get tricky. And that, of course, is when you get a tricky situation with spot deliveries and so on. Because I've had some dealerships, people say that. They go, well, hey, if I sell a guy a car on a Saturday, banks aren't open. But the question is, did you disclose in advance that you might do that? It might get recalled if the dealer doesn't go through. Some states it's perfectly legal as long as that's what you did, but I'm not getting into it here. So Art S says dachshunds mostly have back issues. They're allowed to leap off furniture. Just don't let them on the furniture or get a ramp. They're worth the entertainment. Well, the problem is it's so hard to tell dogs what to do all the time. I know so many people who say, but dog usually stays off the furniture. Yeah, usually. Guess what? Southern Torrance says, I want butter on my toast, not beans. Back to English food, I assume we're talking about here. Oh. 90 Trey, time in Kelvin and speed in parsecs. Okay. Matthias F. Lou says, in Germany, most shops are closed in Germany on Sunday so we can spend more time with our families. And there's a thing that there's an argument to be made for that. Oh, by the way, I posted a photograph on Facebook, just jokingly, of me in front of the Big Ben Tower, and said, "Oh my gosh, did I miss Black Friday?" And I was trying to be stupid, okay, because I was thinking, what's the least significant thing going on in America while I was in England? And I had several people go, Steve, Black Friday is an American thing. They don't do that in England. Yes, they do. I saw more Black Friday signs in London than and I asked my friend Dave, I go, Dave, when did Black Friday become a British thing? When did it? And he goes, a couple of years ago. And so is Black Friday always a day after Thanksgiving Friday? Or he goes, yes, they set Black Friday based on American. So they actually, it's not a holiday, but it's a shopping day. But you're walking down the street, Black Friday. I bought some stuff at a Black Friday sale. And I had several people go, oh, but they don't do Black Friday over there. They don't. Like, well, yes, they do. So Art S says dachshunds are too short to jump onto the furniture. I've seen some that could leap. I've seen it before. Canera says telling old people to get hunting dogs is not necessarily wise. How about a non-sporting breed? Dude, are you calling me old? Oh, boy. Brian Ellis says Big Ben is the bell. The tower is the Queen Elizabeth Tower. Okay. I'm only laughing because we discussed that earlier. Daniel Kester, I can confirm that Steve does respond to emails. Every email I've sent, he has responded to. Being he has over 500,000 subscribers, I imagine he gets a lot of emails. To find mine amidst those, I'm important. All of the above. Chris Gooley, how about Cyber Monday? I don't know if they do Cyber Monday in England or not. I don't know. Okay, so Solid Pixel says they now do Black Friday in Russia as well. You know, what's funny is if an idea makes some sense on some level, it'll catch on, especially if it makes money for somebody. So I wouldn't be surprised if some retailers in London heard about these Black Friday sales and they saw the videos of the stampedes at Walmart and go, wow, I'd like to have those kind of customers come in here and trash my place for a flat screen TV for $100. They might go, let's do a Black Friday sale also, because what else they got going on? Okay. They can have a Halloween sale. No, but Christmas is coming up, but you know, maybe to kind of prime the pump, like, you know, a month out. So Black Friday makes sense. It makes sense on some level. It's kind of weird, but Jonas says it's black. Hang on a second. It jumped on me again. Where did it go? Hey, Bernadine Sackinger. Brits put beans on baked potatoes. That's really loaded. That's really loaded. Jonas Bob York says in Sweden it's Black Week. Blah blah blah. You should consider putting J-O with an umlaut RK and you make it blah 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 York. Just a thought. We do Black Friday in Sweden too, says Isaac Bob York. We also do Black Week and Black November. A whole month. Gordon 861 says it is not as insane on Black Friday. I didn't see any actual insanity. I just saw the signs. I just knew it existed on some level because there were signs. I saw the signs. Little rock set there for you. Blah blah blah. My dachshund was a miniature dachshund. He never had any back problems. Oh, really? And it might have to do with how big they are, because you know you'll see the miniatures, and then you see the big ones that look like comically long. You know, and don't forget they come in different colors. You can get the short hairs, the long hairs, all kinds. And I don't get me wrong, dachshunds are among my favorite dog breeds, and I love them. But if I was to get another dog, which I'm not planning on, I would probably go to another Shetland sheepdog because I like the Shelties a lot. Prince Albert's, they do Black Friday in Japan now. My fiance is asking all about it and wondering why it isn't Green Friday. And don't forget, they do Kentucky Fried Chicken in Japan for the holidays for some strange reason. And I've seen it so many times, I think it's probably true, but now you never know. David says, yeah, I remember the Black Friday riots. Now, it seemed like every single year somebody released footage of them opening the doors at a Walmart or equivalent and just a wave of humanity trampling everything in its path to get at like 3 big screen TVs, the back of the building, that were ridiculously cheap. And they did it because they just knew that it would draw so many people out. And of course, it cost them whatever the value of those TVs is minus the $100 they get. You know, so it was worth it on some level. But I think I know for a fact that there were at least a couple lawsuits that were initiated as a result. So Code Meester Beats says I have a Malamute that is good for at least 2 normal dogs. My brother had a Malamute for a while. Very, very interesting dogs. Dog would go out and lay in the snow, and you go, come on, let's go inside. The dog's like, no, it's hot in there. I want to lay out in the snow. Oh, so M3 says that he had a friend paged regarding a U of M, regarding a medical emergency at the big house in Ann Arbor. I'm not sure if I missed the part. Like, was there a joke with the name of the page? Was it like your friend's name, paging Hugh Jass? Is Hugh Jass in the building or something like that? No? Oh, boy. Bill Gorman says, I'm 66 in 8 months. Today, SSA retirement starts. Okay, jumped again. Hey, Art S says, did you know that Big Ben is actually the bell? You mean they call the bell Big Ben also? Oh boy, Duncan Campbell now says they've got Black Friday has swept the earth. They've got it in Australia. Feels like they've been in sales for 2 weeks. When is the holiday of yours? So that I know when the sales will end. Oh, the Black Friday sales generally start and end on Friday, but will spill over into the weekend. And then Monday afternoon, the price will go back to normal. And then you'll get those pre-Christmas sales whenever they start. Depends on the economy. And then, of course, in January, the stores are empty. The retailers are sad. They just hope they had a good year. So Waterbucks, they do Black Friday in South Africa where malls are still thriving. Really? Yeah, it's weird because in Michigan, some of the malls, like Lakeside, I remember when Lakeside was first built. It was a big deal. And Michigan was among the first states to have big indoor malls like Northland was a big mall. And many of the malls are gone or out of business or abandoned or just in rough shape. And there's some outdoor malls doing really well, like Partridge Creek or up in Rochester, they've got one. So you never know. It's kind of weird, but there's a bunch of things that factor into it. But like Great Lakes Crossing, which is north of Detroit, a ways out towards Pine Knob, that place is still rocking. But you go into some malls and you're walking around, and you realize, hey, wait, there's empty stores here. Like, what? Really? Okay, sure. Reinhard Mensa just made snow ice cream for the first time this fall. It was cold. Well, I assume by definition it needs to be, right? Bill Thomas, did they declare Monday as Cyber Monday for online sales? Well, I don't know if they actually declared it. It's not like a federal holiday where everybody gets the day off. But I do remember them saying that, and I'm not sure who coined the phrase or came up with the idea. But everybody's like, well, if you're an internet company, tell everyone you'll put stuff on sale on the Monday following Black Friday. But again, I'm not sure how big of a deal that is. Like, does Amazon recognize Cyber Monday? I don't know. Jay Brown says, I saw the sign was by Ace of Base, and of course you're right. I was thinking of Roxette, but it's the same time frame. Big time frame. Kevin Thomas, do you have any recommendations on DUI attorneys in Louisiana? No, I don't. But it is a specialty. It is a specialty. And believe it or not, and this is going to sound funny for an attorney to admit this, but you're going to want an attorney in the jurisdiction where the arrest happened who knows the prosecutors, the cops, the judges, not because they get favors from them, but because they'll know what to expect and what needs to be done. And I can tell you that if you called my office and, hey, Steve, I got arrested in Troy. Oh, I know the prosecutor. I do, and there's other places where that's true, and so it's gonna make it easier for me when I go in to talk to them and try to work something out. Or I can tell you, I can tell you how the process will work. So you want to find somebody who's been practicing for a while in that arena. The last thing you want is somebody who is a first-year practitioner, like 3 counties over, because they're gonna be like, yes, I believe there will be a pretrial conference. You want someone who's gonna say no. You're going to get this judge or this judge. This judge does this. This judge does this. Okay. Prosecutor, this. I've had 75 cases with that prosecutor. Here's what they're looking for. That kind of thing. That does make a big difference. Eric Zeus says Fairlane. And of course, Fairlane is the big one down in Dearborn, mall-wise. And I remember the first time I saw Fairlane, I'm like, wow, this place is amazing. It's huge. With a capital U, huge. So SD back out, says hello from sunny 70 degrees San Diego. Yeah, FDSS says, rest in peace, Peanut and Fred. Hope things are good in heaven. And I saw something cross my desk that says that the guy who had possession of Peanut and Fred is thinking about filing a lawsuit. It'll be interesting to see if that happens. Mark Smith says, trouble with kids killed many malls. Yeah, that's probably true. I remember I never lived near enough to a mall to actually go there and just hang out. But every time you go to the mall, there used to be kids hanging around. And it's because they could go sit someplace and sit by the fountain or hang out, look for other kids their age. And then, of course, if they had a couple bucks, they could buy some food and hang out for some more. And after a while, it's kind of like, but the malls don't want people just hanging out there, and they always worry about kids causing trouble and stuff. So Dave Sieg says you should do a show and tell us about your microphones. I don't know enough about them other than what the name of the microphone is, and what model number it might be. I've never plugged any of those microphones in. They're for show. I shouldn't point there though, because that's an Electro Voice RE20, identical to the one that's on my desk right there. I have two of those, but the ones that are above my shoulder right there, wow, I did that right, are actually, like I said, collector mics. Some of them sent in by viewers, by the way. So I just have them, but I couldn't do much about them knowledgeably. Gilbert worked at 12 Oaks, and they made them park off-site and bus in. That's amazing. But 12 Oaks, again, out in Novi, rocks, and that's one of those malls. It was not much bigger than some other malls, but it was high-end, a lot of high-end stuff. I had some friends who worked there. Art asked, did Junior Brothers do erector sets or Legos together? Neither, believe it or not. I don't think any of my brothers or I ever had Legos. One of my brothers may have had an erector set, but I don't recall ever playing with one much. I had friends who also had Lincoln Logs, but didn't do those either. And Matthew Shostrom says that KFC is a holiday meal in Japan because the first franchisee there lied to the entire population and said Americans buy it all the time as their big holiday meal. And I'd heard that story before, that he was trying to think of ways to boost sales, and he realized that Christmas was coming up. And of course, Christmas is bigger in America than it is in Japan. Of course, Big in Japan is a song by Alphaville, but that's another story altogether. Just got a beep indicating that my phone wanted to tell me something, but what does my phone know? Ember Miss says you got to watch out when they say a price has been marked so much off, because quite often that marked off price may have been from an artificially inflated original price. And that's true a lot of times. There's businesses that do that. And back in the days, when they had TV guides, remember those? The TV guide in the back cover had a in my area for years. It's snowing, by the way. Can you see it in my glasses or no? No? Okay. It's snowing hard. Are we getting any accumulation? Let me see about this. I didn't think I was supposed to get any accumulation today. But the let's see here. Accumulation, 0 inches. So that's just aesthetic snow. There was an ad on the back for a local gym membership. Every single week, it claimed that there was a January half off sale, a February half off sale, a March is always half off. Is it ever full price? Well, full price is half off of what? And some states made that illegal, and some states it's not enforceable, but who cares? But there you go. MHOH says Cyber Monday made more sense when people went back to the office on Monday after Thanksgiving, back when we had offices and many of us didn't have internet at home, or good internet. Yeah, there you go. And of course, the joke was that you're at work, and you're surfing the internet on a Monday, buying stuff. And I will admit that now occasionally, if I'm shopping someplace, I'll look it up to see if it's cheaper someplace else. But I will still buy it if I think I need to support a local store. But if somebody's got something just insanely, outrageously priced, I'm like, it's gonna be hard. Sarah Cease's great song by Alphaville. Yeah, it is. Ron Way, did you get your 1.8 million from Interpol? Not yet. I'm still waiting. Dan Boyd's Lawson's was a convenience store in Dayton, Ohio in the 60s, 70s, 80s. They're gone now, except for in Japan. Same sign and logo and everything. Maybe they were big in Japan. Oh, boy. Bender says, Steve, I love your cancels. Like cancel stamps or what? I don't know what that means. I love your cancels. Am I missing? By the way, I'm going to hydrate here, so I apologize. Art S says turning Japanese by the vapors, another one-hit wonder. So among the things I can tell you about while I was in London, hanging out backstage as I did with my good friend David Fowler of Aussie Pink Floyd at the Royal Albert Hall, was attending the after show party, and I can prove that to you because I have the after show sticker for those of you who weren't here for the first 15 minutes of the show. Dave goes, I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Dean Howard. Now, he later said, understand you can't say, hang on. He goes, be careful if you Google his name because Google will assume you're looking for Howard Dean, the politician. This man's name is Dean Howard. And I met the guy. And David had told me that Dean Howard had been a musician in a bunch of bands, plays guitar. And he and David have been friends for years. So I meet the guy and I go, oh, by the way, David mentioned to me that you played in some bands. Who have you played with? And he goes, oh, I played with, let's see here now, Deep Purple and Bad Company. Some other bands you've never heard of. And I go, like who? And he goes, T'Pau. I go, T'Pau? Heart and Soul. What are you talking about? I wouldn't have heard of T'Pau. And I swear to God, he acted like he was so shocked. And I'm like, dude, I worked in radio. That's my era. I love that song. And he started telling me a story about the band. He joined the band. They'd already released some music when he joined the band. And he was with them for a while. And then I said, have you ever been on Top of the Pops? And he goes, several times. He was even on a Christmas episode, which is the big deal in England. Trust me on that. But it's so funny because I was talking to David and I was talking to some other people. And I was talking to Dean later. And out of the blue, we were talking about something else. He goes, but you knew who T'Pau was. I'm like, for a guy who worked in radio in the 80s, trust me, I know who T'Pau was, especially when it's a cool song like that. Bob Bong, how was England? It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. And Harry Seldon says, of course, they got the name from the character of Spock's wife on the original Star Trek. It's T''Pau, the capital P, T'Pau. Tricky thing about that, because that's in the pre-internet days. You wouldn't want to name your band T'Pau today, because if you did, people would be typing in T-O-P-O-W and wouldn't get it right. John Smith, the intro and outros are done by Heather, the Canadian robot lady, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. She gathers them, I gather them, people send them into us, all that kind of thing. So, Brianna says, for the two of us. Doug Jones just recently noticed that when Google search, their first response is AI generated. I don't know exactly when that started. I think it started a couple months ago. I've noticed that too, and I have to just skip over it. But I also used to skip over all the paid endorsement responses too. Tim Nossum, T'Pau is my favorite one-hit wonder. She really belted those notes. I forgot the woman's name who sang it, but they were good. Bill Gorman, Vapors Turning Japanese. Pete Nicolich says, Top of the Pops is a bloody, lousy program. They're all mimed at lip sync. Very, very little actual. Oh, no, it was, no, absolutely. The Top of the Pops was weird. It was weird. There's a couple of different reasons. I've heard explanations for it all. But if you had a hit in England, the BBC would invite you to appear on a show called Top of the Pops. But because of, among other things, rules regarding union musicians and so on, and also the space they were working with, they would tell bands, you're going to come in and just stand on a stage and pretend to play along with your music. And some bands took it very seriously and some didn't. There were bands playing where the guy dropped his drumsticks and just kept doing this, and the drum sound kept going because they weren't miking the drums. But, of course, if you got on the Top of the Pops, people would hear your song and then run out and buy it on Monday. So it was a big deal. So Dan Boyd says T'Pau, T-A-P-O-W, would be the palindrome for Tom Wopat, if you somehow got that together. Okay. Ron Wade claims that they've had actual other elections in other countries. I'm not sure if I've missed half of a discussion I probably had. Yeah, Isaac Bob York says T'Pau also had China in your hand, and I skipped that not intentionally, but so here's what my good friend Dean Howard told me. is that China in Your Hand, which was a big hit in England and other countries, they wanted to release that in America as a single. And apparently the record company in America said no, they like some other song. And so they released China in Your Hand in England as a single, and it became a hit. And I forgot what they did in America, but they did something different in America. And it's just the politics of who decides what singles get released. You'd think wouldn't be political, but I've heard stories before of people at record companies who got mad because somebody said, "You don't want to release this, but not this," and oh god. So Kemp says Royal Albert Hall is fantastic. They've got a huge and well played pipe organ. I did not see a pipe organ. I saw a pipe organ in the Temple Church that some guy was actually practicing on. And taking the tour, the guy at the front desk, when you walk in, he goes, I hope you don't mind, but the organist is practicing. Like, no, it kind of adds some ambiance. I got no problem with that. So Dan Boyd, do they call their hits pops? What do they call Pepsi soda? Laser Troll is pointing out that it's not a palindrome. No, but it was like Wopat Tapow, right? Wouldn't that Wopat? That would be it, right? Satan, oscillate my metallic sonatas. Check it out. Now, Southern Torrent says, tell your friend that T'Pau from Star Trek was the older woman from Amok Time, not Spock's fiance. All I know is the character from Star Trek. Oh, boy. Doug Jones says, Big Ben's guards are always tired because they work around the clock. Somebody else posted as a comment under my video. That is pretty funny. I'd never heard that before, but of course it's silly. James Chimelix is back when KFC got to Asia. The slogan "Finger licking good" got translated to "Bite your hands off." I have a sneaky feeling that very well could be an urban legend also, because some of those things, you don't have a multi-million-dollar corporation translate a sentence without having somebody go, dude, there's a problem there. But I know people love to say those things, so. Matthew Shostrom, would a small mom and pop store be able to advertise $900 TV for $50 and then go to Walmart and buy all of their $900 TVs for $50 due to the price matching legally? Oh, I don't know. Do they honor price matching? I'm not sure. I hadn't even thought about that. I do know I heard a story years and years and years ago about a guy who ran a small mom and pop store, and he's buying Coca-Cola from his local Coke distributor, and the guy was paying a certain price for it. And one day he walked into Sam's Club, and Sam's Club had Coke for less than he was paying for it from the distributor. So he called the distributor and goes, "Hey, look, how is it that Coke can sell pop for less than I buy it from you for?" And the guy goes, "Well, they buy so much, they get a discount." The guy goes, "Can I get the discount?" They go, "No." So the guy said, "Screw you," and canceled all his orders and started buying his Coke from Sam's Club and saved money. Yeah, Chris Cooley says Chevy Nova means doesn't go in Spanish, except for that'd be Nova versus Nova. And that's another story. But anyways. Southern Torrent says there have been some translation faux pas in marketing before. Yeah, I'm just saying you gotta be really careful about some of them because some of them are spun a little bit. And MH08 says Nova means no go, and Nova in Spanish means an exploding star. Exactly. It'd be like the word notable. Notable, right? It means no table. So if somebody said, I've got notable furniture, like let's suppose you were selling furniture and you had notable furniture. Oh, you don't sell tables then, do you? No table. No table. So anyways, don't go there. Angela Von Halley says, do you have a twin? 3 hours ago, you showed a stream in London, and 70 minutes ago, you were back in the studio. Was London fake too? Yeah, all green screened. No, I shot that on Wednesday. It's one of the wonders of modern technology. Steve Martin, hello from no longer Union Lake, Michigan. But it's a fascinating area of the state with all those windy roads out there. I've got a bunch of friends who live over that way. Ariel Darkstar says, rather have price match than price gouge. Oh, okay, I'm going to tell you guys a story. I don't know if I can make this into a video or not, or possibly it might wind up being a video on the Vault channel. But I was walking along on Monday and was going to be going to Cambridge with David Fowler of Aussie Pink Floyd. And I stubbed my toe really bad, my big toe. Boom, right into a step. So bad. I was in pain. I haven't felt pain this bad in a while. And I'm like, oh, that's gonna leave a mark. And so I'm like limping for a while, and finally it kind of goes away. I'm like, that's not bad. That's not bad. So go down, meet Dave, get in a car, drive for an hour and a half. We get to Oxford, get to Cambridge. We get out of the car, and I'm walking outside. My foot hurts. It hurts bad. And so we're walking around, and I stub it like 3 or 4 more times that night. The next day, I try to stay off. I got to go to Royal Albert Hall. I go there, and I'm so distracted. I'm running around, and of course, I stub my toe a few more times. I'm now going to jump forward to let you know that my big toenail, this toenail, on my right foot, is black. It is this color right here. The entire toenail is black. And on Wednesday morning, when I looked at it, it was black entirely, the toenail, and bright red and purple all around out here. Now it's gotten better. It doesn't hurt anymore. But I looked at it today. It's black. Okay, and I'm going to lose the toenail. But it was funny because when we got to Cambridge, the venue, I told David, I said, look, I stubbed my toe really, really bad. And we're backstage running around, going up and all these different staircases and stuff. And the stairs in a lot of older buildings in England are shorter. They're not as deep as they are, And so it's very easy, very, very easy to hit your toe. And I did it several more times. It was so bad. Mark Miller says, pain since your knee. Oh, no. This made that knee pain. This was worse. This is worse. And not only was it worse, but it kept continuing because I kept hitting it. Which I admit is all self-inflicted. I'm not blaming anybody. It was just one of those things. But I remember getting back to the hotel Monday night, and I put my foot up. I'm elevating my foot, and I'm sitting there looking at my foot, watching my toenail turn this color, and I'm going, oh, I hope I didn't break it. And it's not broken. It's not broken. But it was just as much pain as you can put into your big toe. Steve Patrika Huva Peva. Finish. Isaac Bob York responds, Huva Ilta. Art S, you haven't hurt yourself since the mowing incident. You're talking about the ATV where I whacked my knee? Yeah, that was just about a month ago, maybe. Ariel Darkstar says, it sounds like when I slammed my thumb in a car door, I lost my nail. No, I've had that happen before where running a marathon, for instance, you run 26.2 miles after you've walked a mile to the starting line because you had to park so far away. And I ran a marathon in particular it happened twice, on a really, really hot day where I was sweating like a pig. And another one where I ran in the rain and my shoes get wet. And if your shoes get wet, your feet can slip inside your foot. Your foot can slip inside your shoe every time you put your foot down. And you're constantly hitting your toe like this. Do that for 20 miles. Okay. And you get home, you take your shoes and socks off, and you got blisters and all kinds. And you realize your toenail is turning black and you're going to lose it. It happens. Every runner I know who's done a marathon has lost a toenail. So Doug Jones, the Fred Flintstone's throbbing thumb. Yes, I remember that. Isaac Bob York says, Huva Paiva means good day. Huva Ilta means good evening. Okay, thank you. Mary Fox says a hot needle would melt through the nail to release the pressure. I'm not sure how much pressure there is left in there now Because you're right, because there's basically the bruise is, I'm guessing, blood. That's, I don't mean to be gross. Nurse Jim says a marathon before the marathon in the rain, uphill both ways. Pretty close, pretty close. When I run the Free Press Marathon, I routinely park over in the Greektown Casino because they have free parking. And so it's hard to park any closer anyways. And it's, I think, about a mile from the Greektown to the starting line. If not, it's close. And you're walking freezing cold in the morning. And then when you're done, you got to walk back. It's just as far. Oh, Reiner Man says my podiatrist told me about the toe thing in marathons. It's quite common. Oh, yes, it is. It's quite common. Jonas Bob York says just got an ad for a phone company offering low price for a year on cell phone and called it Black Week for 2 years. It's such a weird thing that they can sit there and convolute this Black Friday, Black Weekend, Black Month, Black whatever. Mustafa El Gamel says black toenail from running happened to me with medication, not ointments. It recovered. Huh. I've never heard of that. I mean, I looked it up and they just said the only thing you're concerned about is if you broke it. Because if you didn't break it, chances are it'll recover on its own over time. Harry Selden at a balmy 28F. Are you going to take the Cobra for a cruise? It would be quite cold. It would be quite cold. Mike Lackner broke a pinky toe once. You may not think you use that thing, but you'd be wrong. Oh, and that's the thing. If you break a toe, it doesn't matter which one you break. As you're walking, and that's the things most people don't stop to think about because it's muscle skills you developed at a very young age when you're learning to walk. Age of 6 or 7, and as you're walking, your toes are kind of like both the lever and a sensor to let you know how you've rocked forward to keep, and without that, number one, you tip over. But number two, it hurts like a mofo. Is that a dirty word? It hurts bad when you have that because you will be bending that every single time you put your foot down, unless you've got your foot in a cast of some type. Lilith Calbridge says that chair in the background looks awfully uncomfortable. Okay, I should take a vote. Should we discuss the chair? No, we're not going to discuss it. Although I might get a new chair, but we'll discuss that later. Andy Unks is 6 or 7. I don't know what. Let me guess. You learned to walk at 5, right? Southern Torrance says I thought 28F was shorts and polo weather in Michigan. Don't get me wrong. I wear shorts pretty much. I think it's shorts season, except between like basically Christmas and Valentine's Day. I wear shorts all year round. I don't care. But if you're in a Cobra, an open-topped car, and you're zipping around, that wind chill's gonna get you. Dan Boyd hurts like a federal mogul. Mindbend. Hiya, Steve. Hiya, Mindbend. How you doing, my friend? Prodigal Stranger says Southern Torn 28C would not be 28F. Now, 28F is cold. 28C would be a different matter. David Martinez, my family's from Drummond Island, Michigan. That's a whole different thing. So you cross the Mackinac Bridge and hang a right after you go up a little bit. And you pass a bunch of really, really neat little towns like Hessel. And then you come to a town called Detour, and you got to stop because otherwise you drive into the water. And then there's a ferry. You can put your car on, you take the ferry out to Drummond Island. And Drummond Island is fascinating because, among other things, there have been troops stationed there like during the War of 1812. And so it's a place that a lot of people in Michigan haven't been to. I've been there 2 or 3 times. I've also spoken at the library in Detour, believe it or not. But it's a neat place. I've never met anybody who lived there except when I was visiting, and obviously people lived there. So Chris Gooley says, get Steve a gaming chair for Christmas. And see, Brian, I'm going to do the abbreviated chair story because you asked for it. The chair right here is a wooden chair that replaced the white plastic chair I used for years. And no one ever saw the chair because I'm sitting like this and the chair would be behind me. No one ever saw it. I never complained about it. I'm the person sitting in it. So I started doing live streams where people can see my other chair and they're like, oh my God, oh, your chair looks painful, blah, blah. I sit in the chair for 10 to 12 minutes when I shoot a video. I mean, you've sat in a folding chair for 12 minutes before, haven't you? It doesn't kill you. So I was driving around one day about, I don't know, a few months ago, went by a garage sale and I saw somebody selling that chair right there for $5. So I thought, I'm going to buy that chair just to put it on the set and people will stop complaining. Didn't stop anybody from complaining. So you may know that I've got a sponsor that this chair came from called Flexi Spot. And I work with them because I like their products. And I recently did an ad for them. And I was talking about their Flexi Spot chair and how I love this chair. And I noticed in the ad copy, it said, if you've got one with a footrest, be sure to mention and talk about the footrest. And I contacted my agent and I said, hey, you're telling me there's a chair with a footrest and I haven't got one? What's up with that? And he goes, well, I didn't catch that. So he contacted them and said, hey, Mr. Lehto, which I'm sure he calls me, has said that if you wanted to talk about that footrest, he needs to have one. And so I very well might be getting another one of these chairs, but one of the footrests. So what I might do is then take this chair and use it to replace that chair. And then I'll have a chair here with a footrest, which you won't be able to see. And that might stop people from commenting. But I think people are going to go, oh, that chair looks awfully big for that space. And then I'm also getting people going, dude, while you're sitting in your chair, you're moving. Can you stop that, please? Which is exactly why I don't use a chair that you can move in, because I don't want to be a moving target on camera. But I've digressed because I don't like to talk about the chair. Oh, Brian Fullerton suggests that was a plug as a true broadcast pro. I so rarely talk about the brands any place other than in their ads, but it fit in. Art S. I won't buy Flexi Spot if the $5 folding chair goes. Oh my God. Mark Heil, I was on vacation in Italy and I have foot issue. I found out an extra sock in the toe of my shoe hiking around for a week. I'm an idiot. How did you not notice that? I put shoes on before and felt something in there, pull my foot out. And I'm like, oh, there's a family of mice in here. And I'm just kidding. But problem is when you pack stuff, you're trying to, consolidate space and so on. Oh boy. Micha, the chair that shall not be named. Oh, Anthony says if the chair is too big, we won't be able to find the moving money. That's true because, see, there'll be you don't understand how hard this is. There'll be a headrest, and that'll occasionally block Ben. But hey, you guys asked for it. You're clamoring for it. Zephyr says if you replace the folding chair, I'll give you $10. It looks comfy to me. What I should do if I get a new chair, which I think I'm going to. If I don't, I'm firing my agent. At this point, he should pay for it with his own money if he has to. If I get a new chair, okay, and do switch this one out, I will do something with this chair, i.e., give it away as a prize, or auction it for charity, or do something with it. I will not simply take it and put it around. The unaccompanied senior says, I unsubbed a channel where the host kept bouncing up and down while he spoke. It gave me motion sickness. And I don't think that people really do understand. I've watched some shows where a guy just does this, and that's not that big of a deal. And in real life, if I'm just sitting here working on something, I'm tapping my foot. I'm tapping my foot a lot. And in fact, I've done that before. I was tapping my foot on screen, and I've had people go, oh, Steve, your right arm, you have a tremor. No, I'm tapping my foot. So my concern is I think I can teach myself not to move the chair. I think I can also lock it in a bunch of positions. So lock it up. So I'll be sitting in a chair. It's more comfortable than that one. but it won't hopefully be moving around and stuff because I want to avoid that. That's the important thing. Mind Ben says autograph it and auction it. My autograph is so illegible, nobody knew what it was. What I should do is get it autographed by somebody else that makes no sense, like Richard Petty or something. Southern Torrance says people talk about that chair like they're sitting in it. No, that's exactly right. Anthony, why isn't Heather your agent? No, she's a voiceover artist. She's talent. You have to understand there's talent, then there's the agents, then there's producers and so on, right? Josh Holman, good to be here. And we're glad you're here, my friend. Reiner Man says put up a still image during the live stream with no motion sickness. Can you imagine if I was sitting here talking as a photograph? Jimmy Hoffa, is this live right now? For ironically, a question asked by Jimmy Hoffa. Is this live right now? No. Imagine how that would work. Hang on. I'm trying to multitask here, and I really shouldn't be doing that. Captain DMTB Gaming. Would you do a video on Dow Chemical lawsuits and the crazy things they've done over the years, Midland, Michigan, Agent Orange, etc.? I don't know much about Dow Chemical with respect to lawsuits. Without looking some of it up, I know that Dow Chemical did have a big part in making Agent Orange. Agent Orange, of course, was the defoliant that was used in Vietnam, and unfortunately, it had very, very bad effects on humans. And I've actually known somebody who had the syndrome or the sickness that you get from being exposed to Agent Orange. And so it's very, very sad because when the government does something bad, especially in the military, it's almost impossible to get compensated. But Dow Chemical, as a business, is up in Midland, Michigan. It's one of the biggest industrial concerns in Michigan. It has been for a long time. And I know a little bit about the story of the company itself and how it developed there. Because it developed there because there's chemical stuff there that they could actually do. And they're also along the Tittabawassee River at one point, and that's the same river that the dams were on, like the Sanford Dam, those dams that collapsed. And one of the things I was worried about, for instance, is that they actually had holding ponds out back, and I don't know what was in them. But when the Sanford Dam broke and the water came down, it overflowed those ponds, and whatever was in those ponds wound up out in Lake Huron. So I always worry about that. Selm Efron says all pre-recorded, only chat is live. Actually, it could be the chat is all AI. And I've prompted by saying, can you make up a bunch of unusual names and then ask questions? And every fifth question can be about either, hey, aren't you in London? And what's the deal with that chair? The sad part is I should have brought the chair to London. Now I think of it. Anthony says Dow made breast implants too. I forgot about that because there was a lot of litigation on knowing that. A lot of litigation. A lot of interest in those breast implants. Blah, blah, blah. Did you hear about Advance Auto Parts closing 700 of their stores? They've got 5,000 total, pulling out of California altogether. No, I had not heard that. And auto parts stores are unusual in the sense it's a bunch of different ones. And I can tell you where there's like a road that appears to have like three within like half a mile of each other. And I'm not sure how they all stay in business, but Fishing 365, why does the FCC make it so hard to get a low power license? I don't know, other than they're a federal agency and they make everything hard. I know that it's very, very hard to get a full power license, but I'm not sure. I know they're originally that the low power licenses were supposed to be so that communities had their own radio station that would speak to that community. And I've heard stories about that's not how it's turning out. But of course, that's how everything is these days. Somebody has a decent idea and the government's going to incorporate it. By the time they incorporate it, it becomes almost the exact opposite of what you thought. That happens. It happens, unfortunately, a lot. So I don't know. 90 trade. Do you recall what your first case was, and did you win? Depends on how you define case. I'm not trying to be a lawyer here. Depends on what is. Sherry Strahan, was your Interpol email for real? Of course not. It was spam. I changed the thumbnail to say probably not true, and in the description it said not really. But I realized I probably should have at the very end said, just in case you're curious, this is nonsense. It's spam. But anyway, so the first two cases I had that are of significance was I had a case up in Lapeer, Michigan, and I hate to admit this, but I represented a landlord, who had a tenant that hadn't paid rent, just didn't pay rent, and they had demanded a jury trial. Oh no, I'm sorry. No. Hang on a second. Different case. So it was the case in Lapeer, though, was a landlord and a person simply stopped paying rent, and they're entitled to a trial on that if they fight it. So they were served all the proper documentation, and they just didn't pay rent. And so the case consisted entirely of me calling my client, who was the owner of the building, and then me calling the manager, who was the one who handled payments. And I put two witnesses on and said, Your Honor, my clients are entitled to a judgment of possession, meaning they get their unit back, and damages in the amount of the unpaid rent, plus some other fees and costs that are built into the lease. And the judge then asked the defendant, do you want to put on the defense? And the defendant gets in the stand, and I get to cross-examine and say, excuse me, why didn't you pay? You didn't pay your rent. Did you pay your rent? No. Okay. Boom. And so I won that case, probably like a 45-minute long trial. And then my first jury trial, I remember it vividly. And in fact, I'm very good friends to this day with my opposing counsel. I'm not making this up. And it was a complicated case, but I had a client who bought a used car in Royal Oak, Michigan, 44th District Court, I believe. And Judge Brennan, I believe his name was, was a judge of the case. And 3-day jury trial, maybe. And the funny thing there was I won, but it was kind of one of those things. Didn't win everything we wanted to win, but the jury came back in our favor. And it was, in my opinion, a win. But there were two defendants, okay, and each of them had their own attorneys. And so the one attorney, his name is Dwayne Beeman, and he's to this day is a good friend of mine. And Dwayne Beeman represented the bank, and they were the one that was found to be less liable than the other party. So the funny thing is that my client had things to attend to during the day when she had breaks. So we start the trial, and we're going to break for lunch for the first day. And I asked my client, would you like to go have lunch and we can discuss the case? She goes, I can't. I've got business to attend to. I said, okay, well, meet me back here, hour and a half, whatever the break was. And we're walking, and I start walking towards a restaurant that I've eaten at 1,000 times in Royal Oak. And I see the attorney, Dwayne Beeman, walking that way. And I go, hey, Dwayne, you want to have lunch? He goes, sure. So Dwayne and I had lunch every single day during this trial. And I told my client, I said, I hope you don't mind. I've been having lunch with the opposing counsel, but I'd known him from before. We dealt with each other in many cases. And the case ended, and the judge said, if you'd like to talk to the jurors afterwards, you can talk to the jurors. I'll tell them, and some will stick around, some might not. So at one point in time, a couple jurors leave, but a couple stick around. And we're having just a little rap session, and we're asking them, what did you think of this witness? What did you think of that witness? Blah, 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 blah. And finally, we're getting ready to walk out, and this one juror goes, can I ask you guys a question? I go, what's that? She goes, she's a guy. Didn't I see you two having lunch at Mr. B's? We started laughing. I go, yeah, of course. Nothing wrong with that. We weren't discussing the case. We were discussing everything but the case. And I've been friends with Dwayne ever since. And I think that was, I forgot the exact year. I became a lawyer in 91. But I'm still friends with Dwayne. I've hung out with Dwayne. He lives a little bit northern Michigan now. I visited him at his place. And it's like the sheepdog and the wolf in the cartoons. Hey, Sam. Hey, Ralph. And it's just, they got their job to do over here, but over here they can be buddies. So Matthew Shostrom, is that Judge Brennan related to the other Judge Brennan? No, not at all. Not at all. Denise Marie, landlord-tenant cases are like divorce cases run. Oh, but here's the thing. What's funny is I briefly worked with another attorney, and the other attorney I worked for had a couple clients that were just regular clients, and one of the regular clients was a landlord who oversaw housing in a couple different communities, and I didn't even know that they had a place up in Lapeer. And one day she called and goes, "Yeah, we need an attorney for a trial. And you want to try a case up in Lapeer?" I'm like, "Sure." And the cool thing about Lapeer is they've got this beautiful old courthouse right in the town square, but they built this court complex behind it, which looks like a prison from a dystopian future. The trial was in that building, not the beautiful old courthouse. Brian Fullerton reminds us that as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Gilbert's conflict of interest to be a spouse or a child. Conflict of interest, I mean, like whether it be conflict for me to be hanging out with Dwayne. James Milano says, my first car was a 1969 Dodge Charger with a 383 used, of course. So was mine, and I'm sure you know that. I got mine in 1979, bought it for $300, 383 Torque Flight Auto. It came as a 2-barrel, and I bumped it up to a 4 because I wanted to get worse gas mileage. And mine was a special edition, power windows, leather seats, a couple other things that are pretty cool. Stephen Locke, you are back from London already. Yeah, I understood that the timing is going to be a little unusual. I shot that video on Wednesday, and I was out there for a week. I flew back yesterday. Padre, turkeys can fly. Oh, yes. Turkeys can fly. But if you dropped a bunch of them out of a helicopter over Cincinnati, bad things could happen. I've also seen turkeys because I've got turkeys on my property, and I've had turkeys roosting in trees, making a whole racket. And I look over, there's a bunch of turkeys up, and I'm, whoa. Oh, Chuck Puck, what happens if you miss jury duty? Do they arrest you? Is it better to skip summons before you get selected? I'm not sure we may skip summons. If you miss jury duty, you can get arrested. Depends on the jurisdiction, because your notice to appear for jury duty is usually considered a court order. And so you dishonoring or not honoring a court order can get you arrested. I've heard of people who got arrested for skipping jury duty. I've also heard of people who skipped it and never heard another thing about it. I've also heard people say they get noticed repeatedly to be on jury duty. Depends on where you are and how they pick the names. But what I'd recommend that you do is, if you get selected for jury duty, like you get sent a notice saying, "Hey, come on down, you got to attend." I would suggest you do it. And I know you're gonna say, "But Steve, I don't want to waste time. It's a pain in the butt." If you ever get arrested and you don't want a judge deciding your fate, you're gonna want a jury. And what happens when a bunch of people don't show up when you need them? That's why there's a jury there. Don't forget. Let's go back to the Magna Carta and your right to a jury trial. And the jury is what keeps you from being theoretically abused by the sovereign, state, whatever it might be. And tell yourself, how would I feel if I wanted a jury to be here and people are skipping it because they just didn't feel like coming in? And again, don't get me wrong, I understand it's a pain. It is. I've only had to show up and go through the process one time, but I didn't get picked. And I was fine with that. But every time I've gotten a notice, I honor it. And whatever it tells me to do. So I would urge you to do that. But you can take your chances, but you might get arrested, and that would not be worth it. So. Daniel Kester, I've had to go to court for jury duty. I find it interesting. I've also people say, Steve, there are people who enjoy jury duty. Why not make a like a job out of it and tell people, like, if you want to, you can be on jury duty, but The problem is we're not sure that'd be a good cross section. You want a good cross section of society to show up for. 90 Trez has appeared 4 times for jury duty, never got picked, came close once. Love the process. There you go. Dimebag Coin 72 Pinto 1600 cc's 4-speed. I had a friend who had an old Pinto when I was in high school and drove it once or twice. Fun little car. Blah, blah, blah. Is there a statute of limitations on warrants? Well, it's not a statute of limitations on the warrant. It's on the underlying crime. So if a warrant is issued for your arrest, the warrant will be being issued for, I'm guessing, contempt of court. And there would be a statute of limitations on that, meaning that 20 years later, you probably won't get arrested on a warrant that was issued for you for skipping jury duty. But Keith Heaton, hi, Steve. Hey, Keith, how you doing, my friend? Dan E. Boyd, turkeys can indeed fly. You just need a catapult. Dawn McR, isn't there a town up there that doesn't allow motorized vehicles? Yes, but they've got a good excuse. Mackinac Island. It's a big island out in the out in the Lake Huron, we call it. And it's between, in essence, the Upper Peninsula and the Lower Peninsula. It's closer to the Upper. And it's a mile that I think circular. If you drove around the outside, it's like 8 or 9 miles, something like that. And there's a ton of horse-drawn stuff out there. And this beautiful little town, and it's, they shot the movie somewhere in time, partially out there. And it's a beautiful little town. And a long time ago, they just said, we're not going to have any motorized vehicles out here. No cars. And the only way to get a car out there would have been by a ferry of some sort. And over the years, people have tested that, but they have ambulances and fire trucks. Okay, they're going to have those. And the road is paved. The road around the island's paved, and the roads through downtown are paved. But I remember a couple of times where somebody, for instance, bought property up there and wanted to ride a golf cart. And they said, you can't. You can ride it on your own property, but not on the road. So if you go up there, there's horses, there's bicycles, and horse droppings. But they clean up after them pretty well. But yeah, it's not a town, it's an island. But there's a town on the island. But it's Mackinac Island out there. It's beautiful, by the way. If you get a chance, visit it. It's very, very cool. Yeah, Old Paint 71 says, yeah, the turkeys can fly. It's the landing that's the hard part. It stuck the landing. Fishing 365, what is your take on child support laws? I've heard it's rigged. I don't do family law, and it's one of the reasons is almost nobody thinks it's fair on either side. My issue, unfortunately, is that courts aren't equipped to answer some questions. And so I hear stories about people who get dragged into court and say, you owe child support of this much. And the person says, I can't afford that. And I've heard of stories where courts said, okay, let's work something out and figure it out. And I've had, we don't believe you. And I've also heard of it before where it becomes such a hostile situation that the person goes, okay, at this point now, just to screw with the court, I'm not going to pay. And so I don't even want to get too involved because it's very, very emotional. But I've always told people the sad part is you get married in a church, you get divorced in court. You get married in a, whatever ceremony out in someone's backyard, but the divorce is in a court. And courts aren't going to be good at doing that. And so any of the follow-up stuff, the follow-on stuff like child support, same thing. So sorry. Jonas Bob York. So being a lawyer, is that something you ask about when picking a jury? Oh, yeah. They'll have you quite often fill out a questionnaire, basic questions. What's your name? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Have you ever been arrested? Ever been convicted of a violent crime? Whatever it might be, felony. And so my questionnaire is going to say, I'm a lawyer. I'm an attorney. And so what's funny is people go, oh, well, then you'll never get picked. And I know lawyers who served on juries, and it depends on a couple things. Very rarely will they oust somebody based solely on their profession. It happens, but not all the time. But more often than not, they'd ask me, for instance, what kind of law do you practice? I practice consumer protection law, lemon law. And lawyers will pick up on the fact that I tend to take on cases against big defendants on behalf of little people in terms of the little guy, right? Not little people, but you know what I mean. And so somebody might perceive that as, oh, this guy's likely to take the side of a defendant in a criminal case. I mean, I don't know, but I'm saying I can see somebody reading into it that way. But I've told the famous story before. My favorite case I've ever handled myself that went to trial. I tried a case against a used car dealer. And during jury selection, a guy told me, when I asked what do you do for a living, he goes, I sell used cars. And I left him on the jury. And my opponent thought I was insane. And that guy was the foreman. They came back and gave us every penny we asked for. And during jury selection, I asked him, I said, hey, been doing this for a while? He goes, yeah. I go, you understand that lawyers and used car salesmen, we tend to get ripped on a little bit for our professions? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, did you ever think that perhaps that's because there are bad car dealers and there's good car dealers? And he goes, of course. I go, the bad ones give you a bad name, right? He goes, yeah. And I go, so which are you, good or bad? He goes, I'm good. I said, okay, no problem. Left the guy on because my belief was that if he saw what the defendant did in this case, this guy's going to get ticked off. And he did. I mean, it could have backfired on me, but I mean, I talked to my client about it. My client's like, that's fine. So she agreed with me. Tim Nossen, if someone is in the gallery of the court and gets charged with contempt for outbursts, why don't they get a lawyer appointed? It depends on what they're facing. But if they're facing jail time, they can probably get a lawyer. I'm going to get a ton of pushback on that. It depends on where you are. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb is that if you're facing jail time, you're entitled to a lawyer. But there's all kinds of different things based on, because if you think about it, if a judge throws you in contempt right now because you're having an outburst right now, they're not going to stop what they're doing in court and appoint a lawyer for you and have a hearing on your thing right now. So if anything, it'd be when the trial's done at the end of the day, they're going to drag you back out and go, okay, now what do you want to do now? And if you demanded an attorney, you might be able to get one. But again, very, very complicated. Anthony says, hey, Carl's Corner, do you mean gerrymandering? Again, I think I've missed a whole bunch of stuff here. Gilbert says, my ex considered $50 a week expensive. I knew somebody who was dealing with child support, and the other side wasn't paying. I think it was $25 a week. I'm like, really? So, yeah, can't handle that. So, Padre, jail for child support is stupid. How can they pay in jail with no job? Well, generally speaking, the jailing of somebody for child support is not because they didn't pay. It's because they didn't pay when the court thought they could. And so the only way you can possibly change someone's behavior then would be to jail them. I'm not saying I agree with it, but the rationale is a little more complicated. Offensively Normal says, I paid child support for nearly 15 years and I get along with my ex. My children visit me regularly, worth every penny. Something I've heard from so many people about different outcomes, but there is a general concept that if you are a parent and there's another parent involved in what caused you to become a parent, then you should do what you can to get along, because damaging that relationship is probably going to have an adverse impact on the child. But again, I'm purposely generalizing because every single situation is different. Southern Torrance says, that was Steve asking, are you a good witch or a bad witch, to the used car salesperson? Well, remember, we could take a used car salesman and throw them in the river and see if they float. Power inherent in the... We would love to gain you and your community support in the traffic law reform we have started. Would you be willing to speak more about this with us? I'd be happy to talk to you. I don't know what traffic law reform you are starting or what your goal is on the traffic law reform. I'd be more than happy to hear what it is that you are starting and or have started. But you would, again, like everybody else, email me at the email address I gave earlier and say, hey, Steve, talked to you during the live stream. You said you'd take a look at this and send that to me, and I'll take a look at it. We'll see. Aaron Freeman says, if you're facing jail time and can't afford a lawyer, really awful one will be assigned to you. That's something a lot of people seem to believe is true, and I can't speak to your experiences if you've ever had an awful lawyer appointed to you. I can tell you from personal experience, though, that I can show you cases where murder defendants in murder trials got the best attorneys in the state of Michigan to defend them, paid for by the defender's office. I can also tell you that I used to be a public defender. I've done it myself. And I assure you that I didn't get better as an attorney the second I stopped. And so I handled cases, and most of the people at the time didn't know who I was because I wasn't doing a channel on YouTube. And there are a lot of young attorneys out there who handle it simply because they're looking for work. But I've also known guys who started liked it so much that they started handling cases on the side for themselves as their own practice, but kept taking the assignments. And so I know a lot of people like to blame their attorneys when things go bad, but once in a while people actually are guilty. It's hard to believe, but I know it's true. Harry Selden says, we could just see the salesman weighs the same as a duck. And Southern Torrent, could we build a bridge out of them? But can one not also build a bridge out of wood? Shaban says, I need to watch Steve's Interpol video I saw just posted. So here's the thing. What you should do is, it's about 10 minutes long. No, it's actually short. It's like 7 minutes long. We'll just sit here quietly until you come back. How's that? Stephen Lockey says, not so much the lawyer is often awful, but that they don't have enough time or money to actually defend the cases properly. That's true. They're often overloaded. And I've seen cases before. In fact, I think I did a video out of Oregon or Washington State where the state, I forgot which state it was, but the state Supreme Court basically said that the public defender offices are so overwhelmed and so incapable of doing their jobs that it became unconstitutional. And that would be a problem because the law says you're entitled to representation. Presumably, that's decent representation, right? I mean, I've seen some attorneys who got hired who are horrible. Oh, boy. Sandra Jones, what's the problem with my message? You mean like the message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five? I don't know what your message is. What's the problem with my message? Sandra Jones, yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho ho. Is that a punchline or is that the setup? Hang on a second, Sandra Jones. Did I miss anything else? And of course, for me to make an announcement like this at 3:00 on a live stream that ends at like 3:02, is I should tell you, and this is obvious to most people, is that I don't read every single one of these comments because I can't. Okay, there's 600 people in the room right now, 600. Of those 600, there's probably, 50, 60 who are active. And even though I've got the flood control on, there are people posting boom, 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 boom. And this thing's constantly going like this, constantly. And I read the ones that I see that catch my attention. Occasionally I read some and skip them. You'll often hear, if you read along with me, that I'm editing as I read to make it go faster, but I still miss stuff. So don't get offended if I miss your statement or your question. I'm not skipping anybody like out of spite or anything like that. Most of the people I know here I recognize and I'm good friends with. DL Freighter Watcher, Steve, what do you think is the biggest hurdle to overturn the Michigan no-fault insurance law? Seems we're stuck with it. Oh, yes. And if you're a freighter watcher, like you watch the big boats like that go up and down like the St. Mary's River and so on. The Michigan no-fault law, the insurance companies love it. They love it. And they're the ones who pushed to get it in back in the 70s. And they just keep overhauling it to make it worse and worse and worse for consumers. But the biggest hurdle is the insurance companies themselves. Their lobbying groups would not allow no fault to get gotten rid of. So Sandra Jones, hey, I've been subbed for so long. I'm in the original 100K. I've had some other people say that they were there, and I've had people claim they were in the first 1,000, but I don't know. Jason Brindamar, see you later, Steve. Anthony, but you'll go back later tonight and read. Actually, I usually do. I go back and read most of them, and then I'm like, oh, I missed that one. I missed that one. Isaac Bob York, speaking of Monty Python, when Interpol wants to confirm if you're dead or alive, your response is, I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. Floyd, lurker check. Carl's corner, you have to time it just right. Let's see my, or put it all caps. Harry Seldon, have you heard from Jay Leno since he fell down the hill? No, I have not, but I saw him 2 days before. I saw him perform at a theater in Flint, Michigan. And 2 days later, I read about him falling down the side of the hill. So I've not talked to him since then, but my brother has. He's fine. He's fine. Bernadine Sackinger says, remember Pearl Harbor Day on Saturday, December 7th. I always remember because my brother's birthday is December 7th. Angels don't fall. Apology accepted, Steve, but don't let it happen again. Which reminds me of a psychedelic first song, Angels Don't Cry, which is a great song. Blah, blah, blah is going to wrap it up for us. Good night, Sam. Good night, Ralph. I will talk to you guys later. Keep in mind, by the way, Steve Lockey, I don't hate you. I ignore your emails because I love you that much. That there's a video going up tomorrow shot in Dave Fowler's recording studio with his expensive camera. And then either later that day or the next day, I'll post a video of him and I discussing it and talking about that and some other things. So it was a lot of fun, but I am back from London and I'll be posting a lot of other cool stuff explaining what I did because I did so much stuff there. I had a blast. I'll talk to you guys on my channel and, of course, live next week. Until then, behave yourself. Bye-bye.